Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football podcast. I'm Chris Vanini, and I'm going to be careful turning any corners on my motorcycle this week.
I can map it out for you, Chris. I am David Ubben, and I am not on the Beaver Stadium turf management crew, so don't blame me, Penn State fans. Game of inches. Didn't know that applied to the grass as well.
Folks, we have a loaded show here to get to. First off, if you didn't listen to Bunch Formation After Dark, it's in your feeds right now. We went through a lot of games on there. We talked about a lot of things. We recorded it live on YouTube Saturday night. Had a good time. Thanks for everybody who was there. I believe that was the highest viewership and active participants we've had on any of those yet. So I really appreciate everybody who was there. Apologies for my video quality on that. I didn't realize that our good friend Ari Wasserman didn't have such great internet, or maybe he was using it all up for his show or something like that. But had a good time.
Saboteur.
Yeah. So we're not going to repeat everything on that show. So go back and listen to that if you haven't yet. But we do have a lot to talk about here. The Arkansas job is open. Sam Pittman is fired, and Bobby Petrino is back in charge. Penn State is still Penn State. Kalen DeBoer might own Kirby Smart, and a lot of interesting games from an eventful, gigantic Week 5. If you haven't checked out the show notes, we got timestamps in there so you can jump ahead. I'm aware on the podcast audio version that the timestamps don't sync up with exactly the audio. It's because the ads get put in after the fact. So you may have to just jump ahead. Anything you see in the timestamps on the audio version, just jump ahead like 2 minutes and you should be fine. So apologies for that. That's just something that happens after the fact. But please leave any 5-star reviews, Spotify comments. We are actually out of Apple reviews right now. So anybody who's got one, please give it to us. We'll read it on the show. Emails as well. We did get a Spotify comment. Not a positive one, David. This one's actually directed at you. It's from Morgan J. Simon. Getting curious whether David actually likes college football this season. His response to more than half the sport is, eh.
I believe that was my response to Louisville, but I feel like that my wife might have been the one who left that comment, because there's been more than a few things. If I'm unmoved by them, my response is kind of, eh. Like Louisville, and also, we haven't seen much from them. They looked okay for 3 quarters against Pitt. We'll see.
Well, that was also last night. We hadn't watched everything, hadn't kind of gone through every team yet, so we are more aware of what's going on with Louisville and everything else. So, with that, we will start off by talking about the news, and for that, we get into the media scrum.
Well, I don't read the newspaper because it's garbage.
And just like Mike Gundy, there's another coach who is out of a job. Sam Pittman at Arkansas. He was fired on Sunday following a 56-13 loss to Notre Dame that was not even as close as that final score says.
No.
This was expected. He's been on the hot seat really for like years, and it was just kind of a matter of time. And when you have that Notre Dame performance, bound to happen. We do have interim head coach Bobby Petrino.
What a sentence.
It is not John L. Smith, so I guess there's no reason to
smile.
We'll see if this one goes better than that interim run. David, you're the native Arkansan. You people there. Before we get into Petrino in the future, let's talk about what Sam Pittman did. What were the feelings about him there?
I think he's still going to be remembered fondly in Arkansas. Obviously, the last season or two has been frustrating for Arkansas fans, but when he took over the program, it was literally at its lowest point. You know, the bottom fell out under Chad Morris, and Sam Pittman basically overnight made them competitive in a really weird 2020 season. His first game, was against Georgia. Everybody kind of thought I think they were like 30-point underdogs in that game. They were competitive in that game, and they were competitive immediately. And then they win 9 games in year 2. And the way that things go, just a trajectory, they win 9 and you win 7, you win 4. It's tough to bounce back from that. But ultimately, he left the program in much, much better shape than he found it, which is not something that a lot of coaches do. And so, I think I don't think this was not a controversial firing. It was not a surprising firing, as you said. I think everybody kind of recognized that it was probably time. the way that these things go. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of animosity. I think he always represented the school well, really developed a love of Arkansas. And I went and talked to him last year, spent some time with him in the middle of the season. And, him and his wife bought a house in Hot Springs. They put the drooling Razorback statue that's kind of a replica of one that's outside the stadium, outside their house, looking over the lake on Lake Hamilton in Hot Springs. And he said, I know that when I'm done, that's where I'm going. I am going to retire out there. I'd like to be the person who decides when that is. And few, if any, coaches get to decide when that is. But he knew what his next step was, and I think he's happy with it. And I think, too, one of the things that we talked about was, whenever it's done at Arkansas, I'm not going to be sitting there going, oh, what a failure. And I think that's fair. They accomplished some things at Arkansas. And
we'll see if he retires. It's notable because his buyout is somewhere around $9 million because he has a above 500 record from when he signed that extension in 2022. He's 29 and 27. So the buyout is 75% of the remaining contract. That's paid over the next 3 years. However, there is a requirement to try to mitigate that, as in find another coaching job, coach an offensive line somewhere, and whatever you make from that comes off the buyout. So if he's going to retire, perhaps that's just a negotiated smaller amount. And that's notable because remember when Brett Bielema got fired, he gets the job at the Patriots, like an analyst job of some kind, and the Patriots are not paying him very much at all. And Arkansas thinks he's trying to get out of the buyout he's owed, and they stopped paying him. And then Bielema sued, and there was this whole, they end up settling. Buyouts are not all the same. You see the number, but it's over how long is that paid out? Will it be offset by another job? Does it have to be? So that's a very important part of that. So I don't think the money is really going to be an issue here for Arkansas. Before we talk about the quality of the job and the candidates, we got to talk about the guys in charge right now. Bobby Petrino, former Arkansas head coach who took him to a Sugar Bowl, who won a Cotton Bowl, had a top 5 finish, then got fired very famously when he crashed a motorcycle, said he was alone. Turns out he wasn't alone. He was with his mistress, who was a staffer on the team. He gets fired. He has that press conference after the crash, before he's fired, with the neck brace, the bruised face, the Sugar Bowl hat. One of the craziest images in the history of college football.
Yes.
That whole incident, there was a high bar in college football for something to be truly insane. And this was that. And now we're back here.
We are back.
In charge again. And
we are back. That press conference, by the way, everyone in the building discouraged him from having that press conference. He was still very raw. He was on a lot of pain medication. I mean, the press conference itself mostly went okay, but that is kind of the lasting image of the Bobby Petrino era at Tennessee. At Arkansas.
And now we're back. He wants the job. He says he wants the job. The school is acknowledging that. Before we get to that, David, a couple of years ago, you re-reported this whole thing. Well, almost the whole thing. Ari did one part of it, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
The whole motorcycle crash incident.
Yeah.
Real quick, in 30 seconds, can you just kind of describe what you found going back to it? And
I think it's important to note that he wasn't fired for having an affair, which I think is in that story. He was fired because he lied to his bosses. He undercut the trust that they felt like they could have in him. And once they felt like that trust was betrayed, well, then they couldn't do that. And then on top of that, you violate state employment laws when you posted this recruiting job. And I will say he was ahead of his time in putting female staffers on his recruiting staff and the attention to detail and some of the things that they can do hospitality wise that I think they're uniquely gifted to do. He was one of the people that did that, but just don't have one of those people be your mistress that doesn't have any experience in, doing that or fundraising and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, don't lie to your bosses. But the problem is all of the people that were involved in that at Arkansas are gone now. So none of the people that are there now he lied to. So they're good with it. I mean, the real thing that's fueling this is winning is a drug. People are addicted to winning. And they've never seen Arkansas's program floundering under Bobby Petrino. So it's well, surely if he's there, it's going to be great again. And We saw a similar thing happen at Louisville, and it was great for a little bit. Don't forget, it won a Heisman Trophy. Lamar Jackson, the world on fire there. And then the bottom fell out there. The recruiting was very bad, and the program was in a really tough spot. But when Bobby Petrino was fired, he was at the height of his powers at Arkansas. And so there's a lot of people with a lot of money and influence at Arkansas that would love to see Bobby Petrino back as the head hog. We'll see we'll see if we get there. I think a lot of that, we were talking about for the show, a lot of that will be determined by what does the next, 8 weeks look like in the interim. Yeah. And if he's going well, I mean, it's going to happen.
When you re-reported that story, there was one part of it you couldn't do, which was the woman who had the affair with Bobby Petrino and her husband, they're still together.
They were engaged when all this was happening, by the way.
Yeah, they're still together. They live near where Ari and I live here in Texas. And Ari went to their house to try to get comment because that's what you have to do as a reporter. And I believe he was basically yelled at and the door was slammed in his face, and he called it one of the strangest things he's ever been a part of as a reporter. But
that's accurate. Yeah,
we did try to get all sides of that story, or at least you guys did. So
yeah, and I will say before people jump on it, because I get this when I wrote the story, I got it. I'm aware of all of the conspiracy theories surrounding the motorcycle accident. I reported it fully. I talked to a lot of people who would know. A lot of people that are very smart believe some of the conspiracy theories. None of them are true. I'm sorry to disappoint you. None of them are true. I reported the heck out of this. There was a lot in that story that did not make the story. None of the conspiracy theories are true that you have heard about the Bobby Petrino motorcycle accident. It mostly happened as we believe it to have happened. And if you go back and read that story, there's most of the details are in there. That's what happened. So
I'll have
sorry to disappoint you.
I'll have the story in the show notes.
Yeah.
Let's start this. The case for Bobby Petrino. One, if he's the interim head coach and they start winning, then maybe you consider it. But the upcoming schedule: Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, Mississippi State, LSU, Texas, Missouri. So not terrible. It's doable. The flip side is if he doesn't do well and you're the 80 Hunter Yurachek, it's very easy to say, no, we're not hiring Bobby Petrino. Yeah. So it does open up that door. And it's important because this job is difficult within the SEC. They have a lot of money. They can recruit pretty well, but you're not competing against people in the ACC or the Big Ten or this or that. You're competing in the SEC, and everybody in the SEC is spending more money than you. I've talked to player agents who all said, Arkansas is way underpaying players compared to other schools. Sam Pittman himself.
Well, can we hit on this briefly?
Yeah.
So you've got industry. You have Walmart people, you have Tyson people. Those people have not been as, I say mobilized. They have not been courted as hard as you would like. People made a big deal of the Tyson thing when they hired John Calipari. Yeah, like that they kind of mobilized that. And there's money in Arkansas, but you got to have a head coach who has those relationships and moves people and says, I believe in what we're doing here. So when he asked me for $5 million for our, we call it the NIL budget, whatever you want to call it, $5 million for players, I want to give them that money. And Sam Pittman was just not that. I think that was probably his greatest flaw. I would say it's probably fair to call it a fatal flaw as a coach because it's a talent acquisition business. And the talent wasn't there. And I think it was just because they weren't as aggressive as they needed to be. No. And if you're Arkansas, you have to be aggressive. Tennessee knew they need to skirt the rules a little bit in terms of when there is this wild west atmosphere around NIL. We need to jump in there and say, well, the rules weren't really clear, so we're going to do 80 and a 55 and hope we get clemency. And it mostly worked. Arkansas is just not doing that. And I think you have to when you're playing at a place where you are fighting an uphill battle relative to resources, whether that's talent, whether that's money, all the things that lead to winning. Arkansas is in the bottom half of the SEC in terms of quality of job. And you've got to do everything you can to get an advantage. Look what Ole Miss has done. You have Lane Kiffin. He moves people. They've mobilized the money. Ole Miss is not a great job, but they're thriving right now because they have a coach who's aggressive and obviously a good on-field coach and all those things. Yep. So something to think about.
And the other thing with Arkansas, so Arkansas is, I think, 13th in the SEC in 24/7 sports team talent. They are ahead of Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. That's it. Like this is a near the bottom SEC job. And so you don't have much in-state recruiting talent. Like even Mississippi State's got talent in that state. Arkansas just doesn't have it. You need to get into Texas and do some things there as well. And then there's the internal part of it with the money too. John Calipari's making $8 million to be the basketball coach. They've got a lot of money going toward basketball. They've got a lot of money going toward baseball. And the AD, Hunter Yurchuk, said a couple of weeks ago, he ruffled some feathers when he was like, look, we are ready to compete for a national championship in basketball and baseball, and we're not there in football. And it upset people, but it's true. And so if you're the next coach, you're thinking like, hey, of that rev share money, are we getting less at Arkansas than other schools because more's got to go to basketball? Like that is very much a real thing that they need to figure out. Like not just the money versus the SEC, money internally as well. It's almost like a Kentucky problem where you've got a lot of that going to basketball. And so when you talk to player agents about Arkansas, they're underpaying people relative to others. Sam Pittman was paid near the bottom of the league. So are you going to pay up and get a coach? Are you going to pay less to get a coach who then puts more money toward the roster? Like that could be the case for Petrino. Hey, maybe Petrino takes the job for $3 million and you use that extra 4 or 5 to go get players. I mean, like there's a case to be made for that. So it's a really interesting job. Of all the jobs that are open, of the 5, 4 of them to me are all very, very close. You have Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, UCLA. I graded them all a B in my job profiles. It's not trying to be a cop-out. It's more just like there is some upside, but it's different at different spots. Arkansas can spend more money than Virginia Tech or Oklahoma State, but Virginia Tech and Oklahoma State have a better path to the playoff based on the conference they're in. So it's like, it just depends what you want. I do think Arkansas will ultimately get the best pool of candidates for that job compared to some of the others, but it is a difficult, you can make the case it's not the best job, but I'm making the case that it is best available based on what most coaches are going to look for, which is it's an SEC job and they'll pay me like $8 million. That is typically what you're getting in the SEC. Do you think Arkansas should rank as the best job available right now?
Yeah, probably. I think the upside is there. We've seen them do some big things, in the last 10, 15 years. Ironically, the Bobby Petrino did a lot of those things. The Petrino thing, Hunter Yurchuk's not dumb. Like, all the reasons that you don't want to hire Bobby Petrino. Yeah, he's a good AD. All the reasons you don't want to hire Bobby Petrino, he knows. But at the end of the day, go ask Bubba Cunningham at UNC. Sometimes, just because you're the athletic director doesn't mean you're actually running things. Like, if people that are writing the checks want something and you don't have a way to prevent it from happening, it's going to happen. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And, I have a feeling that if they do this, that there will be some really good moments and there will probably be some really low moments. And, it's going to be fascinating. This is, I think, the most interesting job search at this point, Chris, I would say.
All right. I'm going to list some names here as we do with these open jobs. I'll list names that I have on my job profile report card, which is linked in the show notes. I'll read through them all first, and then Dave will talk about a couple that jump out to you. All right. SMU head coach Rhett Lashley, UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor, Tulane head coach John Summerall, Florida State offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn, Georgia Tech head coach Brent Key, Bobby Petrino, Texas State head coach G.J. Kinney, USF head coach Alex Golish, Georgia defensive coordinator Glenn Schumann, Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, maybe Deion Sanders, but probably not. Any of those, let's start with the obvious one. Rhett Lashley. Is that the most obvious one of these?
That is very obvious. I don't think he would be very divisive. Like the Gus Malzahn thing. Gus Malzahn is a really complicated. Go ahead.
Real quick, let me give you the bat for people who don't know. Lashley from the state of Arkansas. His parents are still there. He went to school there. He played there. He coached there. That is his home. And so home is going to come calling. Not only is that the home for him, most of that stuff he did at Arkansas was under Gus Malzahn. And Gus Malzahn has flirted with the Arkansas job a lot of times. Gus Malzahn also said recently that he was considering retiring from UCF before he took the FSU job. So those are the two guys with the connections to the state. David, as somebody who knows the state, What do
Yeah.
you think of those two guys in the job?
So Gus Malzahn has a complicated history. So there's like a weird dynamic in Arkansas between Central Arkansas and Northwest Arkansas. A lot of folks in Central Arkansas really do not like Gus Malzahn. A lot of the Little Rock money people do not like Gus. I think it's dumb, but it's a factor that's there. With Rhett, I don't think that there is quite that dichotomy. And Rhett has also separated himself from Gus, not as like a personal thing, but just at some point you got to get out from under the nest. He's done his own thing. Went to Miami, went to SMU. Now he's got this thing cooking. To me, it's a tough call if you're Rhett because, yes, it is home. But you can keep winning at SMU. You have resources. You're in the ACC. You've already proven you can get to the ACC championship. Arkansas hasn't played for the SEC championship since
2006.
Yeah, that would have been the Florida. They lost to Tebow in that game. It's hard. And it's even harder now because you don't have divisions. And so, if I'm Rhett and I'm like, going to Arkansas, it's going to be tougher than it is at SMU. Do you want to run? Do you want to have that job? If you really want to do it, then you can take it. But if you want to win championships and you don't want to get fired, I might wait for a bigger job that is more advantageous because going to Arkansas and winning at Arkansas and going to a bigger job, I don't know that that's a path. Like I'm trying to remember the last football coach. It'd have to be, I don't know the order of the Lou Holtz thing, but it would have had to have been in the 80s the last time that a coach left Arkansas for a bigger job. It's not really a thing that happens. They fired Houston Nutt and he went to Ole Miss. And so it just depends on what you want out of your career, and I think if I'm Rhett Lashlee, I'm probably not taking that. And I think too, when you look at, the Scott Frost and Nebraska situation, going home is a complicated thing, And obviously, Rhett Lashlee, not the same caliber of player as Scott Frost, and home is home, but he's not really like an Arkansas playing legend. No shade to him, but so it's a little bit different. But man, if you don't win, people really kind of turn on you, and I don't know that you want to have that in your life. So it's a tough call. He's going to be number one on the list. I think in terms of football, in terms of ties, he's the guy that makes the most sense. I don't know if I'm him. I'm making that call.
He would be a home run hire. Of all the guys who could get jobs in this next coaching cycle, I have long thought Rhett Lashlee is the most ready-made guy. I've sat in meetings with him, coaching meetings. I've seen him run the program. He knows how. So when Sonny Dykes got the job in 2018, I spent a lot of time with that staff. I did a series of stories about how a new staff kind of gets going. And Rhett always jumped out for being really on top of things. This was a guy who was prepared to be a head coach. So I'm not surprised that he then takes over for Sonny and elevates it even more. Under Sonny Dykes, SMU got good, but they'd trail off at the end. The defense was bad. Rhett fixed that. And they won a conference championship. They made the playoff. He's constantly dealing with billionaires. You want a guy who needs to go to somebody and ask for some extra money for something. He knows how to do that. He will do everything that Arkansas needs in a coach. I think he's very, very sharp. But I also think he's going to have a lot better jobs coming his way. What if Florida opens? What if Florida opens? What if Auburn opens? What if Ole Miss opens? What if various other things? There could be a LSU, who knows? I think he's going to have his choice of better jobs. And the SMU billionaires have always told me, we're not losing Rhett for money. We may lose him because he does something, but it ain't going to be for money. And he just signed a new contract. Don't know the details because it's a private school, but they paid up to keep that defensive coordinator too. Scott Simmons, very good coach. SMU could have lost him to somebody else and they kept him. So he's been getting the resources he wants. You're in Dallas. Recruiting is not that hard to do when you're there compared to Arkansas. We're going to have to do more. So yes, clear number one guy. I don't know if he takes it. Elsewhere, I've heard you may know more than me. I've heard the Arkansas people really liked Jeff Traylor when he was there for 2 years. I think it was 2018.
I think that the administration likes him. I think he's underwhelming for fans because of the record and because it's kind of tailored off. And I think that shows a lack of respect for how hard it is to sustain and win at the G5 level. I think he would kill it at Arkansas.
I've heard that they know they need to recruit Texas better. That is where you typically got a lot of your players. And Jeff Traylor would kill in recruiting Texas because he's a former high school coach there. He knows everybody. I think that John Summerall's at Tulane, kind of the same boat as Lashlee a bit, where it's he's going to be like 1A, 1B guy. Everybody's going to want to hire him. Fantastic coach. All he does is win at Troy, Tulane. He coached at Kentucky, played at Kentucky. Like, he could do better than Kentucky, similarly. So he'll be interesting. I put Brent Key on here just because, like, he's at his alma mater, and so it may be tough to pull him away. He really loves that place. But he is among the lowest paid coaches in the ACC. His AD left for Michigan State. The finances there are tough. You're always going uphill there. But that's a guy who's made the most out of what he's got. I think he'd be a good coach wherever he goes. I don't know if he wants to leave. I just think he'd be a good fit. And then you have kind of some of the other guys. GJ Kinney, he's been a coach for a few years. Young guy, 35 years old. I don't know if he's ready for an SEC job, but he'll get interest at like Oklahoma State and stuff like that. Alex Golish at USF, similar deal. Kind of got to see how the rest of the season plays out. Matt Campbell, I know Iowa State fans get mad every time he's on every single coaching list, and understandably so. He has not left. He has stayed, despite lots of interest elsewhere. Just putting it in there because other schools do want to hire him.
If you want to change the scenery, you could do worse than Arkansas if you're Matt Campbell. So
it's a similar deal. Like, one of the really good supportive fan base, not as many resources, but you maximize what you got. So that's that. All right. So that's it for Arkansas. We'll have more on theathletic.com and on this show for that coaching search and others as they play out. So with that, we're going to jump back into games from the weekend, talk about a few different things, and see where that goes.
Kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
And we're going to start this kind of with a theme, which is highly touted quarterbacks who have been struggling. And that's your Drew Allars, your Cade Klubniks, your Garrett Nussmeiers.
Kind of been the story of the season so far this year, honestly.
And we'll start with Drew Allar, who we did criticize a lot on the show on Saturday night, which again is in your feed. Like, Drew Allar I looked up the numbers this morning. Drew Allar is currently 86th nationally in yards per attempt. Yes, that includes the Oregon game, but they played 3 cupcakes. 86th. He was 16th last year. He doesn't look better. And he doesn't have Tyler Warren to throw to. So, like, what do you make of him? What do you make of Penn State? Is this just going to be the same story over and over again? And the other question I posed, is Penn State better if Drew Allar went pro last year and Bo Pribula stayed? What do you think?
It's an interesting question. It's very hard to evaluate quarterbacks off of TV. If you're there, you can see what he sees, and are the receivers running open and he's just not seeing? He doesn't have any interest in throwing more than 15 yards down the field. But all I see are, okay, let's look at the numbers. Obviously, through 3 quarters, 3 completions for 10 yards to receivers. That's an issue. Nobody does that.
Receivers that you brought in to fix that problem, especially when you weren't going to have Tyler Warren.
Yes. You finished today 14 of 25, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the interception that ends the game. That pick.
Good play defensively.
Great play from Dylan Thieneman. It's not a good throw from Drew Allar, but it's not like a "what are you doing" sort of thing. Anyway,
and Lanning said it was a coverage they hadn't used all game.
So it's whatever. When I watched it, you didn't see a lot of the here's an 8-yard speed out and he throws it in the dirt. We didn't see a lot of that, but you just didn't see a lot from a guy as experienced and as talented and with as many tools as him that made you say, wow, like, this guy is really, somebody to get behind that can carry a team to a championship. That's what the standard has to be this year at Penn State. They're as good as anybody in the country in terms of just pure talent. And I just didn't see that. And so where do you go from here at this point? You've got all the pieces there. You've got these backs. The offensive line wasn't fantastic last night, but you paid to get these receivers. You brought in Andy Kotelnicki. It looked much better, obviously, in the fourth quarter when they rallied. That play that they scored on to Ross, that little shovel pass was incredible. Which, by the way, he gets credit for a pass there when that's basically a running play. But you just need to see more. You need to be the reason that you're winning these games, and you're not. You're not even the reason that you were competitive in these games.
He was a 5-star quarterback. He was supposed to change the program. This was supposed to be the guy that put them over the top. And instead, he gets outplayed by another former 5-star, but a guy who's only started like 10 games in Dante Moore, who just simply looked better. He looked more under control. He knew what he was doing. It feels like Drew Allar's, a lot of his best plays are when a play breaks down and when he has to like figure something out. When he's there thinking and running an offense, it's just not there. Like, I picked Penn State to win the national championship. They can still win the national championship. We remember what we said about Ohio State when they lost to Michigan. And look, things can change, but this team doesn't look better than last year. We thought, hey, they bring almost everybody back, they'd be better. Instead, they look like last year's team that lost the two best players in Tyler Warren and Abdul Carter. To my question, would Penn State be better with Bo Pribula? I don't know if I'd say it yet, but in 2 weeks, Missouri's got Alabama, and Pribula has looked very good this season. So if he starts putting up numbers, then we're going to have that conversation where it's, hey, for the second time, did Penn State let the better quarterback walk? Because it happened with Will Levis as well. So I don't know. Penn State, we'll see again when you get to the Ohio State game. I'm sure they're going to dominate the rest of their opponents, but they've got Ohio State and Indiana left. Yep. And when we get to those games, we'll have the discussion. But I imagine they'll win. They'll just do what they do against the not good teams. So it's got to be frustrating, man. Penn State fans, such a great fan base, such an awesome scene at the whiteout. I feel bad that you're just seeing the same thing over and over again. Another quarterback who is not living up to what we thought he would, Garrett Nussmeier. You were on the Nuss train, Ubben. But
I'm still a moderate Nuss train passenger. Yeah,
he is also 86th in yards per attempt, tied with Drew Allar. He was 44th a year ago. They lose to Ole Miss 24-19. He goes 21 for 34, 197 yards, a TD, and interception. And they cannot run the ball. And I think LSU again knows that they cannot run the ball, and they just don't have an offensive line that's as good. So Ole Miss is rushing three guys and getting pressure on him. So like, that's tough, but it's the situation where you wonder if LSU is going to make a coordinator change sometime this season. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it feels like, this is kind of after last night was the first time that we started to hear some of the Joe Sloan, criticisms. I don't know, man. It's hard for me to see, like, how much of that is scheming guys open. It doesn't seem like he's missing a ton of throws, but it seems like they're just not able to get guys in position to allow him to make some plays. I think one of his biggest strengths, Garrett Nussmeier, is anticipatory throws, reading coverages. I think he is as advanced mentally as any of these guys that we're talking about today in the college game. That's why I've been really into him, because he can see things and throw guys open in a way that is very hard to teach. That comes with experience. And part of that is just, growing up as the son of an offensive coach who's been around a long time. I'm sure that that's hard to not come away with a lot of that knowledge. So you've got that piece there, but they don't have the playmakers. Like Berrien Brown hasn't been as big of an impact guy as you would like. They've had guys hurt. No running game hurts. The offensive line is not helping, as you mentioned. There's not one reason. I think it's a lot of things that are factoring in, and ultimately, it's just not a good offense. They're in a really bad place. And, Brian Kelly snapping at the reporter a couple weeks ago has aged quite poorly because, you beat Florida in that game.
The concern
is what they are.
The concerns brought to Brian Kelly in that question remain the biggest concerns these weeks later.
Yeah.
That's why it was asked, and understandably. But you have Trinidad Chambliss. He just outplayed Nussmeier. 314 yards again. He always looks comfortable. Dante Moore outplayed Drew Allar. Ole Miss, top 10 team, maybe a top 5 team right now, depending on the polls and what you look at. We talked about Ole Miss a lot on the previous show for people who want to go back, but I like this Ole Miss team. It feels like they're very cohesive. To lose Austin Simmons and not miss a step and maybe get better. Like, we don't know Austin Simmons' availability because he's not listed on the availability report, but he's clearly injured, which you wrote about. So we don't know when he's actually available or not. It's not a quarterback controversy or anything, but like, I think at this point you ride Trinidad Chambliss until it's not working. But
yeah, I think you have to at this point. But it's Ole Miss is an interesting team because I believed in them more last year because I thought they were better on the lines. I think that carries you a long ways. But this team's not as good there. But there's like a grit to this team that I don't know that we've seen from an Ole Miss team in quite some time.
So the other quarterbacks, Cade Klubnik, 91st in yards per attempt. DJ Lagway, outside the top 100 after him being second last year. Arch Manning, 42nd in yards per attempt. You wrote a column about this. Like, why are these guys all struggling? Why are we in the media and the NFL scouts, like, we wrong on all these guys? Like, if you go back and look at the top quarterbacks coming into the year, like, most of these guys are not playing well. Like, do you have any theories about it?
I don't have any good theories. I do think the Lagway health thing is real. I think I buy a lot of that. The Arch thing is very confusing. I have no good answers for people on Arch. Who's the other one? Who are we forgetting? Who's
Klubnik, Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, Klubnik. I mean, I don't have any good answers there. Klubnik, when you watch him play, you're like, he seems okay, but some of this is just not scheming guys open. And, the why for that is, we talked a little bit about Garrett Riley a couple weeks ago. They've had some moments. It was not overnight. They struggled for a couple of years. Last year, we saw them kind of pop a little bit, but they've got to be better. And I there's not one reason for all these guys to struggle. I think it's a complicated thing, but it's definitely been, like I said, one of the stories of the season, and hard to sort of get your hands around for why so many people were really buying into before the season, both of us included, have been really poor. Yeah. When they had shown some good stuff, and we'll see about the Arch health thing. I do think the Nussmeier health conversation is interesting. Did you see what he said last night, by the way?
No, what did he say?
People are asking, like, is there something wrong? He just said, I'm not going to answer questions about my health anymore.
Well,
yeah.
What you say
that's
what you say when
that's what you say when you're something going on, because otherwise you're like, I'm healthy. It's just
when you have the comment about Arch Manning's throwing and grimacing and all that we don't know. So like maybe all these guys are hurt in some form, but it's just shocking because you came into a year with so many veteran guys. Like, part of the joy of NIL is that a lot of really good players are staying in school because they're making millions of dollars instead of having to go pro. So you have these seniors and these guys, Allar, Klubnik, these guys who come back and they're just not delivering. And now they're losing future NFL money, which is shocking. Our Dane Brugler, NFL draft expert, like, there's not a real explanation for all of this. Like, all the NFL guys would name these guys and like these things, and they're just regressing for whatever reason. And everybody can say we in the media don't know what we're talking about. Should talk about these other guys, which is what we're about to do. And now we're going to talk about some quarterbacks who are playing way better than expected. We're going to start off with Ty Simpson at Alabama. They win 24-21. Ty Simpson goes 24 for 38, 236 yards, 3 touchdowns. He is 21st nationally in yards per attempt. He looks solid. Alabama converted, 11 of 16 third downs or something like that. Really high number. They stayed on the field. And one of my takeaways is that I think Kalen DeBoer just owns Kirby Smart when it comes to game planning for the week. Because in the first half, the last two Alabama-Georgia first halves, the last 2 years, Alabama has scored 54 points. Now, credit Georgia, they have adjusted and shut them down in the second half. But something that Alabama's doing leading into the game, Kalen DeBoer is winning that. Like, that's
it's not even just that. I mean, you forget they win that game. They beat Georgia last year. 2 years ago, he goes 2-0 against Dan Lanning, and then beats Sark in the playoff. That's pretty spicy. That's a nice 3 years against some of the best in the sport right now.
He is 7-1 against top 10 teams. That one loss is in the national championship game to Michigan. Like, the numbers for James Franklin, for whoever against top 10 teams, Kalen DeBoer in the big games, they step up. That was never the problem at Washington. The problem was the same problem at Alabama, which is the duds. You lose to the teams you shouldn't lose to. And I count Florida State this year in that boat because Florida State's coming off a 2-10 year. You can understand if Alabama thinks they can just kind of get off the bus and win that game. Maybe that Florida State game's a wake-up call. I don't know. I got to see Alabama continually pound the teams they're supposed to.
Well, I think when you look at Simpson, confident, decisive. He
Yes.
just looked like he knew.
He knows where he's going with the ball.
Yes, and against Georgia, that's no small feat. And you mentioned it on After Dark, just the way the offensive line played, neutralizing Georgia's defensive front, that helps a lot when you're not looking over your shoulder constantly or waiting to just get completely blasted by a defender that you don't see. But man, that's as good as I've seen Ty Simpson look, ever. I mean, he hadn't played.
Well, we haven't seen him that much, but even the Florida,
but like that was really impressive.
Even in the FSU game, like he wasn't that bad. He was just like a little off time and time again. And Florida State was able to get a lot of pressure on him. But like the way everything, it's like he takes a snap, takes his 3 to 5 step drop, then crow hops forward and hits the throw. Like everything was on time. And that's a credit to the offensive line as well. Shout out Ty Simpson. Like you said this on the show the other night, like the theory that maybe he would just be a better fit for the offense than Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the case. It's possible.
That seems pretty clear to me. I mean, Milroe was just limited as a passer. It just was what it was. And I don't think that Simpson is. And certainly Michael Penix was not. And did he have Jake Haener at Fresno? Was that?
Yes, he did. Jake Haener, who almost came with them to Washington, but then didn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, those guys could sling it and were pretty pure passers. Like Milroe, was special in a lot of ways, but
it's guys who can.
I would not describe him as.
It's guys who are mobile but not running quarterbacks necessarily.
Yeah,
and that's what you're seeing from Ty Simpson. Another thought I have, another theory here, coming off of this game. It's possible Alabama fans may now just be like a step ahead of Georgia in understanding the adapting to the new world of college football. And you saw Kirby Smart kind of say this after the game too, which was just like, this is college football now. The days of Alabama and Georgia hoarding all the players is not going to happen. And so you have Georgia fans being like, hey, why aren't we better at this position? Why don't we have the depth at this spot like we used to? Well, you can't anymore because everybody else can pay for those players that used to make up your depth. I think Alabama fans went through that last year with Kalen DeBoer, and now you come out of this win. Like, I'm not going to say Kalen DeBoer has reset expectations in a good way, but maybe it took a year like that for Alabama fans to understand it, and maybe Georgia fans are going through it now because I don't know if this is a Georgia team that's going to make the SEC championship. Like they barely got away from Tennessee. Should have lost that game, maybe. You lose this game. It's going to be tough the rest of the way. Like, what do you think about that? My theory on Georgia fans just kind of like learning what Alabama did a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, when you still have Kirby, who I still think is the best in the sport, I think there's a level of faith and irrational confidence that might be there when you got a guy that's flashing 2 national championship rings, even though the program hasn't been quite what you'd hope. He's the closest thing we have in the sport right now to Saban. So maybe a little bit, or there might be some denial there. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point, Alabama's already struggled so much, and I say struggled, I'll use that in quotation marks under Kalen DeBoer, that there seems to be a level of appreciation of wins from Alabama fans that maybe we haven't seen in quite some time.
And what's interesting, by the way, Georgia had better numbers overall. Like they ran the ball pretty well in this game, but it was the third downs. That was the difference in the game. You also have obviously the bad drop on the deep ball from Georgia, although Alabama had one too. You have the bizarre 4th down run to Cash Jones. I didn't love that call.
No, I did not. I did not.
Like Georgia could have won that game like very easily.
Georgia's throwing these guys out here, man. They're your Cash Jones, your Dylan Bells, your Mekhi Muse. We won't get into the Lad McConkey conversation, but like you're Georgia. I'd like to see like a little more Derrick Henry, a little less Cash Jones out there. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
So another quarterback who's been playing pretty well. Chandler Morris at Virginia. They beat Florida State 46-38 in overtime. Was it two overtimes, I think. Morris goes 26 for 35, 5 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions, which was not great, but he scored 3 on the ground. Son of Chad Morris, playing for fellow former Clemson offense coordinator Tony Elliott. And Chandler Morris has won flip an interception into a touchdown against NC State from being 5-0, Virginia. So like, shout out Chandler Morris, a guy who was at Oklahoma, Then he started at North Texas. Then he started at
You missed TCU. Got a TCU in there.
TCU, then North Texas.
Now
then
back at Virginia.
Now back at Virginia. Not back, but now he's at Virginia.
Oh, at Virginia.
Playing very well. So shout out to him. Tommy Castellanos, I think we kind of learned the flaw there, which is like if it's a passing down, just blitz because he's going to run back, throw it up in the air because they cannot apparently block so well. So first off, shout out Virginia. We talked about the field storm on the last show. It was scary looking. It looked like 19 people were treated for injuries, but nobody seriously hurt. The players.
I've seen that before. It's called World War Z. So
don't go into Tommy Castellanos and flip him off and record it. That's loser behavior. Don't like that. But Virginia's top 25 team now for the first time in a while. Program that's been through a lot. It's an example of instead of paying that buyout money to fire the coach, maybe you try putting it into the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia's looking pretty good. And Tony Elliott's potentially not only looking for a bowl game, but their remaining schedule is very, very easy.
Can we talk about? I'm going to say this in the same sentence, Chris. Virginia ACC championship.
I'll say that Georgia Tech has a similarly easy path, and we may get down to another weird tiebreaker situation. We also said it about Cal, and then they lost to San Diego State. I don't think Virginia's going to win all those games, but you could see an 8-win season, a 9-win season there, and that's a big deal for them.
Well, you know what else is a big deal, Chris? Are you aware that Virginia is still undefeated in conference play, despite a loss to NC State?
Correct. That was a non-conference game. So on Florida State, do we think we overrated them or no since Alabama won? Because I saw in the AP poll, they dropped quite a bit to 18. They dropped to 18th. They are now behind the Alabama team that they beat. I can tell you that will not be the case in my 136 rankings.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think we overrated them. I just think, I mean, who's we, I guess, is an interesting question. Because I wasn't sure what to make of them. I thought maybe Bama was probably not as good as we thought, and that still might be true. We'll see what Bama is over time. That Vandy game this week is actually going to be super interesting. Vandy has been pretty spicy. But they look to me like they could bounce back 7 to 9 wins. That was kind of my feel coming off of that first game. Mm-hmm. And, you keep beating up on bad teams and, it is what it is. But I don't think they're good enough to just run the table in the ACC, obviously, even though there's a bunch of games that you should be favored in. So I feel like this is kind of who I thought Florida State was. I didn't think they were above going on the road to a really underrated Virginia team and losing in, just a pretty dramatic game.
Yeah. Another quarterback who's playing very well, Luke Altmeyer. He just beat USC 20 for 26, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. They kick a walk-off field goal to win in a game that probably should not have been that close if Illinois would stop turning the ball over inside the 5-yard line. Heck of a, that says a lot, I think, not to be cliche, but that says a lot about your team's culture to take that beating you did at Indiana. You have your best defensive back out for a long time, if not the season. And you're going up against a really good offense in USC. And you didn't shut them down, but you kept them off balance for a while, and you ultimately win the game. Luke Altmeier's playing great. Illinois, major props. They deserve attention for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think with them, it is going to be interesting to see because we've seen them look pretty average at times this year, and they were not average a year ago. And, people were talking about Indiana taking a step back. Illinois, great game on Saturday. They've got to prove something to prove that they're not going to take a step back and still be in that playoff conversation by the end of the season. I'm not sure I'm quite there with them yet.
Another quarterback who was overshadowed in week 1, Julian Sayin at Ohio State. Ohio State wins this game at Washington 24-6. I think Ohio State looks like the best team in the country. I think their defense is unreal. They have not allowed a red zone touchdown in 7 trips. They've allowed 22% third down conversions. Even though DeMond Williams was completing passes, they were not sustaining enough drives. And when it got into the score zone, Ohio State really locked up. I still have Ohio State number 1. But Julian Sayin, 22 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns. His first road game, tough place to play. He throws a lot of safe balls, balls that aren't going to be intercepted. He knows how to be careful with the ball. And Ryan Day said after the game, Julian Sayin was identifying and checking into stuff that even Ryan Day didn't see until he looked at it on the tape. And for a redshirt freshman, that is really impressive. Again, not saying Julian Sain's going to win a Heisman or something, but like that's the exact kind of quarterback you need to get that you got from Will Howard last year. I thought that was fantastic. We
obviously have the weapons around him. Like it is a little similar to the Will Howard situation, and considering that he blocked Will Howard win a national championship without having to be Superman, the defense is what the defense is. The running game is probably not as good, certainly, as it was a season ago. There's no Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, but the receivers, I mean, obviously you got the best player in the country. I mean, you got a Carnell Tate who's great, Brandon Ennis, great player. Like, he seems to understand he doesn't need to be Superman. Well, Will Howard, of course, he understood that. He's coming from K-State, a different situation. He's a lot more experienced. He's played a lot more football. It's a lot easier for him to be like, yeah, like when a guy's open, hit him. Don't, wait for your third read that might be open on like a little deep post route or something. Okay. So he understands that. And I think that Ohio State's been benefiting from it, and they don't need to be super like Ohio State. Are they the best team in the country to you right now, Chris? Again?
Yes. Not clear far and away. Not that there aren't teams that can't beat them, but
yeah,
I think
I would
they
say
look
narrowly.
like
I'm
a
kind of
complete
with you
team.
on that.
Yeah. So another quarterback, not the same numbers, but got it when he needed it. Fernando Mendoza, Indiana. They win 20-15 at Iowa. Mendoza 13 for 23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception. Gets the game-winning touchdown throw in the final 2 minutes with a throw, and I think it was Surratt caught it, ran it really far for the touchdown. But Mendoza stood in there and took some hits and like delivered NFL type of throws. Like those were the throws that people who liked Mendoza coming into the year were like, this guy got that type of stuff. And that's a good win for Indiana. Like whatever you think of the final score, we already talked about the weird safety thing on the last show. But like to go to Iowa and win for Indiana, that's hard. Like historically, like they did it. You're not going to win every game by 63 freaking points. I think that was a very impressive win, and Mendoza looked really good.
He seems to have like some of the most unintentionally funny body language like ever. Like,
yes,
you see, he threw the touchdown pass, and it looked like somebody had like rescued his daughter from the well, basically.
Yeah,
or something like it was like incredible. And then, did you see he apologized after the game, Chris?
He did, as I mentioned on the show.
Do you know if Ari accepted his apology?
I didn't ask him. So we had Indiana, I think 8.5 or something. So it didn't matter. But some people got in Indiana at 6.5, and so the safety at the end, bizarre thing, cost people some money. But Mendoza explained it, was aware of it, apologized. I don't know. We've had some bizarre bad beats in college football the last couple of weeks. It's crazy. Another guy, CJ Carr, Notre Dame. He against Arkansas, who was very bad, but he goes 22 for 30, 354 yards, 4 touchdowns. Arkansas is not good, but that's a big time performance again for a guy who's a freshman getting better.
On the road, whatever it's worth. CJ Carr is making me wonder if we're really underrating him, Chris. Like if he might just be, like one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the country already. I don't think so, but it wouldn't shock me if that was the case.
I mean, Dan Wetzel put out like, hey, could he be the number 1 pick in the 2027 NFL draft? Because he's eligible next year. You got a lot of these guys who I think are going to supplant the Cade Klubniks and the Drew Allars as we get to NFL draft season. Dante Moore, by the way, eligible this year for the NFL draft. I think it's very early.
You know what I wonder, Chris, is we're thinking about all these quarterbacks that are underachieving. What do you think the odds are that some of these guys that are not having great seasons do what people wanted Quinn Ewers to do last year, where you take a big time offer and you hit reset and you go play, one more year, change of scenery, get some different tape out there. I'm curious if we see that.
I don't think they have eligibility. Like, I don't think Allar or Klubnik have any more left, unless the NCAA does your 5-5, which they've talked about. And it's not, I've talked to the people involved. There are by the way. So I was talking to some coaches and personnel people last week. The NCAA has been talking about, should they give a 5th year of eligibility to everybody, take away red shirts, take away waivers, whatever. Everybody gets 5 years. That's it. And there's been discussion about that. There's a lawsuit over involving some former Vandy players. or current Vandy players. And it seems like we might get there, but coaches want to know, hey, is this going to be retroactive to 2025? Like, are these players going to be able to get that 5th year? Because it impacts these guys who they have to determine to redshirt or not once you're through 4 games. Like, I had a personnel guy being like, hey, is that going to happen or not? Like, and I checked with, administrators, and nobody knows what's going to happen there. So at the moment, those guys don't have any more eligibility. Some of them. DJ Lagway obviously does. So we'll see on that. I'm not quite sure. Other games of note, we'll run through these quicker here. A&M-Auburn. A&M wins 16-10. Auburn had 8 carries from the running backs. And I know the Auburn media and the Auburn fans, they're kind of done with Hugh Freeze right now. Like, I know you've got Singleton and Cam Coleman, but you have to be able to run an actual offense, and he's not making the offense better. Hugh Freeze isn't. And there seems to be a lot of frustration there. Any thoughts on that game?
I think A&M is, just kind of hanging around. Nobody seems to really be hyped on them, which is probably good considering the history of A&M. But I came away from that game thinking, like, A&M, they keep winning tough games. Complete team. I like what I've seen from them. Look out.
Tennessee beats Mississippi State 41-34 in overtime. Crazy back and forth game. My big takeaway, though, is I think Mississippi State is really improved. Like, the schedule is a lot harder going forward, but they're probably going to get a couple of folks. Like, the scenario where maybe Ole Miss is like 9-2 going into the Egg Bowl and Mississippi State knocks them out of the playoff or something, like,
very possible.
That'd be something.
I mean, the thing is, you look at Mississippi State, they give up 2 defensive scores in that game, and they're dragging a top 15 team into overtime. Like, that's crazy.
Jeff Lebby's big improvement there. And I think, like, if you're like in Arkansas, you look at that, you look at Indiana, and you're like,
why not? Why not
if you get the right guy, like, you can get some things going. Like, it's not, you don't have to just sit at the bottom forever. Vanderbilt as well. So, like, that's why you're always selling hope. Game, I don't know if we talked about it yesterday. Georgia Tech 30, Wake 29. Georgia Tech stops a 2-point conversion in overtime for the win after Georgia Tech kicked a field goal to send it to overtime. There wasn't offsides in this call, not called on Georgia Tech, that if it was, it's possible Wake Forest would have won the game. And the ACC seemed to kind of apologize for that. I don't know if it was an official statement or not. But it was like 1:40 left. A guy jumps off sides. I think it was 3rd and 5. And Robbie Asher throws it deep because he's got the free play. He thinks it's incomplete. They don't call it offside. Georgia Tech gets the ball back. And they go down and tie the game. So Wake Forest, it's a big mistake there from the officials 1 week after we had the Oklahoma-Auburn trick play debacle. So I don't know. Anything?
No, I mean, do you think the officiating is getting worse, Chris, or do you think that we just have a much sharper microscope?
So that is the exact story I wrote in the summer with Stuart Mandel. Is officiating getting worse? That was the headline of the story. The officials and coaches would tell you no on the whole, but there are more big mistakes in high-profile situations that are then being amplified by, today's media world. So that's a tough break for Wake, which I think is actually playing pretty well in Jake Dicker's first season. Arizona State 27, TCU 24. TCU blows a 17-0 lead in this game. They turn it over on their final 2 drives as Arizona State kicks a field goal to win. That's a big-time loss, man, for a TCU team that you were about to be, I think, 4-0, puts you in really good position for the Big 12 race.
Yeah.
Can't have
it. The thing is, that's a frustrating loss because they should have had it. They'll get more bites at the apple. Like,
they will.
I am confident that a 2-loss Big 12 team, 2 losses in conference, will be in Arlington. So you got to make sure that it's you. So it's frustrating, but it's not like you feel like you got to win out to stay in the playoff race. Like, if you're sitting there at the end and you're 7-2, you can feel pretty good about we're probably going to be in Arlington with a chance to play our way to the playoff.
We'll see. New Mexico 38, New Mexico State 20. First sellout at New Mexico since 2007. Their first 3-1 start since 2007. We did wonder if they'd wear the awesome turquoise jerseys. They did not. They were all cherry. But this is awesome for a place like New Mexico that got destroyed by the portal and coaching changes last year. Remember, Bronco Mendenhall comes in, has a solid 5-7 debut season, and then he leaves for Utah State in your own conference. You lose Devin Dampier, you lose all your good players. Then the same thing happens with basketball, where you lose Richard Pitino and your entire roster. So they've been through a lot. So to see them 3-1, to see the excitement there in New Mexico, a state that doesn't have a major pro sports team, like they rally around really New Mexico basketball, but for football to give them something, for Jason Eck, the first-year coach, who we both know pretty well. Really cool situation there.
It is.
For New Mexico. Wanted to shout that out. Louisville 34, Pitt 27. Pitt led this game 17-0. They blew it. Louisville, I think your feeling is still right?
Yeah, I want to see more from them, but they have not impressed me. Like they were getting so dominated early on.
But the game changed when the ball boy fought for the ball. And David, you talked to the ball boy.
I talked to the ball boy.
You have a story out. You have a story out in The Athletic now. Tell me what that conversation was like.
So the ball boy, he was laughing because he's like, people say, "Oh, this guy's taking his job too seriously." It is his job. Like, he's a senior at Louisville. He's been working in the equipment room for, since he's a freshman. He chose his college because of the equipment staff. Like, when he was going on visits, like he was asking around and being like, "So what are your opportunities with like equipment staff?" And every school he went to was kind of like, "What are you talking about?" Didn't really have good answers. And Louisville was like, "Yeah, let's go. We'll introduce you to our main guy." And he's been working there. He played football in high school. He's from Murfreesboro outside of Nashville, and like just wanted to stay in a part of the sport. And, basically they lost a bunch of footballs at Pitt 2 years ago, and he was not going to let that happen. I learned a lot about the logistics of this, because when there is a turnover, then there is an inherent conflict that happens, because when there's a turnover, then the other team has possession of one of their balls, and the ball boy's got to go get it. Usually it's not an issue, but the last couple of years we've seen some incidents where it becomes an issue, and it was a pretty fun story to do. I learned a lot about the equipment manager world.
Yeah, and the game changed. It was a 34-10 run for Louisville, I think, after that play.
Yeah, he said he wasn't sure he wanted to take full credit for the win, but, he said it didn't hurt. The thing is, like, the whole incident, like, he's like, when you win, I just want us to win, because this whole thing would look very differently if we won, which is true. So,
yeah. Cal 28, Boston College 24. Jake has 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Cal is 4-1 now. That, like, to come back from that loss to San Diego State and win a conference game against Boston College.
And they were down early, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 14-0, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah. So Boston College, like, they're 1-3, I think, but like they keep losing close games and kind of weird games. They did lose the game to Stanford on the trip. So that was tough. Yeah. Just, it's about the edges, and Cal did not have those last year. They do this year. 4-1, like, for a job that everyone's like, "Oh, Justin Wilcox, he's going to get fired." Obviously, no, maybe not. They may be kind of doing the same thing that Virginia did, which is pay up to get some players, keep some players, and maybe it works out for the coach. It's weird how the sport works better when you have a better coach.
Yeah.
I mentioned this last night. ULM 28, Arkansas State 16. This is here because ULM ends a 16-year losing streak to Arkansas State. Congrats to the Warhawks. And Butch Jones now 1-4 after he had kind of turned things around at Arkansas State. So
not
great there.
Not good.
North Texas 5-0 after beating South Alabama 36-22. And next up, USF on a Friday night. That is going to be fun. The night before Red River. That's going to be a game we're all going to be watching in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Drew Mestemaker, fun team, North Texas. They figured this thing out, especially on defense. Cincinnati 37, Kansas 34. Cincinnati field goal in the final seconds to win. Crazy game, back and forth. Cincinnati had a bunch of touchdowns called back. Jalen Daniels passed for 445 yards. Both teams.
Yeah, he was incredible. That's a tough waste for a big day for him.
But another situation here, a coach who came in, we all thought he was going to get fired, Scott Satterfield. Cincinnati is now 3-1, and that one loss is in the, down to the final play against Nebraska. So, like, again, another coach, maybe we don't want to have a hot seat watch on this episode because they've either been fired or the coaches are starting to win some games, or they didn't play like Florida. So that's interesting to see. Then a game we didn't really get to because it was later. Iowa State 39, Arizona 14. Just when I was starting to doubt Iowa State, they destroy Arizona to move to 5-0. Arizona, not what I thought they were. Good win.
Yeah. We need to see some I still am not sure what to make of Iowa State. Like, it's just that was impressive. That was probably the best thing we've seen from them.
I picked Arizona to cover and Rocco Beck to go under 236 passing yards. Neither happened.
They saw it. It was supposed to. They blew that up in the locker room, Chris. They were talking it up.
I think I went a little over 500 on the picks. We'll get to that in the preview episode later in the week. So with that, it's time to get to our helmet stickers. This is a section of the show where we give a shout out to a player who maybe didn't get enough attention on Saturday and had a really good performance. My helmet sticker is going to New Mexico quarterback Jack Lane. He went 23 for 30 for 303 yards, 4 touchdowns in the win against New Mexico State. The first sellout at New Mexico since 2007, the first 3-1 start since 2007. This is a program that lost a lot off of last year's team. They lose Devin Dampier to Utah. Jack Lane comes in from Idaho, has a great game, looking really good. Shout out to Jack Lane and the Lobos. David, who do you got?
Nice. I'm going to go with Drake Lindsey, fellow Arkansan from the Northwest Arkansas area. Minnesota 3-1, and Drake Lindsey 324, 31 of 41, 3 scores to beat Rutgers. The Gophers fighting a little bit. Interesting
good bounce.
And good performance from them.
Tough way to lose for Rutgers. You have that snap go unready through the legs of Kaliko Manis late, set you back. Tough one there. And Rutgers now has a very tough schedule coming up the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So with that, we are now going to end the show the way we always do. And that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And considering we talked a lot about an Oregon quarterback who played pretty well, I'm going with a former Oregon quarterback. That is Kellen Clemens, quarterback there from 2001 to 2005. He's the guy after Joey Harrington. Solid career. Went on to play for like a decade or over a decade in the NFL as a backup somehow. I didn't realize he stayed there for that long. But when I got into college football, it was like that 02-03 time period. And Kellen Clemens was the quarterback. I was a Michigan fan. Michigan went out to Oregon and lost to this guy. And so I always think about him. Kellen Clemens, we remember you.
I'm going to go with Mo Hurst. Big dog. First of all, Chris, I wish you had gone with Dennis Dixon. I was waiting on Dennis Dixon. 6'2", 290, All-American at Michigan. I just love the big dudes up front. And we had some good moments. We were talking about it on the After Dark episode, Chris, but Caden Proctor, his 5-yard run, whatever it was one of my favorite highlights of the season. And,
no, it was like a 10-yard run. He was a first and 10. He picked it up.
Yeah, it was incredible. My favorite play. But so I wanted to give some love to the big fellas. And Mo Hurst, I love the big run stuffers up front, like the Jordan Davises of the world, the Jalen Carters of the world. Mo Hurst in that ilk. Really fun player at Michigan. And shout out to Mo Hurst. We remember you. It's only been, 6-7 years, but hey, we remember you.
I had a drop here. Oh, I didn't add it to it. It's from Pro Wrestling. Big E from WWE who says big meaty men slapping meat. We use it. We use it on the wrestling pod for the big guys. I should have added this earlier, but we'll have that moving forward. Because yes, we love the big guys here. And we have a remember some guys nomination from listener Clinton Eubanks, who says a really good, not the best running back tandem in college football history, but the best 2 names in the same backfield at the same time. Deuce McAllister and Joe Gunn of Ole Miss. David, do you remember them much in college?
I remember Deuce McAllister. I don't remember Joe Gunn as much, but I definitely remember Deuce McAllister at Ole Miss for sure.
Yes, I remember Deuce more for the NFL. Obviously, a lot of people do, but appreciate that nomination, Clinton. By the way, folks, we are out of Remember Some Names nominations from the listeners. We got a big chunk. We have now through those. Please email us bunchformationpod@gmail.com for the guys you want to remember on the show, and we will continue that. That's going to do it here, David. We got week 6 coming up. We'll be back on Thursday to talk about that. After an eventful week 5, we haven't talked about the playoff race yet because I think it's too early for that. And I don't know.
It's so wide open. There's no form to it. There's 40 teams in the mix.
Like the only team to really have the discussion about right now is Notre Dame, which we did a year ago. They have to win out and then we'll see. But like until we get closer, I didn't want to just have full on playoff talk because I think we're all focused on our teams right now and getting better and winning week to week. And we'll see. It's so wide open. The conference races are open. The playoffs open. It's awesome. The carousel is spinning. A lot more to come. We have made it through September, David, on this show. We appreciate everybody who's been listening, subscribing to the channels and everything. We've been slowly growing the show since we started in late spring. It's been very fun to see it. Every email, every comment, we read it all because we want everybody to be a part of this. And we've been having a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun last night. And
Yeah, you know what I think of that comment on Spotify, Chris?
All right.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Bring back the turnover chain and good Lord, bring back the Ryder Cup next time. I'm tired of this. Stop losing.
Tough one. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday. See ya.